Stop! Stop surfing YouTube, everybody. Okay. At least if you want to hear my reply to the question of, is the military surge in Iraq working? Very general question that, of course, has been the front page news for the last week. General Petraeus came to Washington yesterday, and no, he was not as charming as Mr. Smith, though he did seem to be fairly honest general. I'm about to share with you 6 stories that I think will be more helpful for you in assessing the answer to that question of whether the military surge is working. First off, what does working mean? This is think for yourself, so we try and do our best to rely on our own minds rather than just listen to what the pundits and the generals and the media tells us. So working in my mind, and it seems in most analysts' minds, means that we are giving time and space for the Iraqi government to reconcile with each other. The Shia, the Sunni, the Kurds. All of them get together and decide, hey, this is how we want our government to work. There's obviously been very little movement in that direction, at least of late. Well, the first story I'm going to share with you today is not an encouraging one for people who want to think that this military surge is working for that goal. Today in the New York Times, September 13th, one of their main stories is how the current oil sharing agreement that the Iraqi government's been working on has collapsed. So what happened? This has alarmed me. Well, the Kurdish coalition of the government has decided to begin signing oil contracts with international oil companies and natural gas contracts before the Iraqi government has even passed an oil-sharing law. This has PO'd the Sunni and Shia coalitions in the government, and they are all now scrambling the negotiators to try and put this thing back together. What makes this so disturbing in my mind is that the latest contract the Kurds have signed is with a company called Hunt Oil Company. Hunt Oil Company, folks, is based in Dallas, Texas. Now, we've heard a lot of news coming out from the Bush administration and their minions like Fox that the Bush administration supports Maliki and is trying to have this military surge succeed so there can be political reconciliation. Well, here is an instance where an American oil company has signed a contract, has done the exact opposite. They are undermining the Iraqi government's ability to come to an agreement. This is, to me, an offense that could be considered criminal. Because, of course, we're sending soldiers there who are dying for this reconciliation. And then we have an oil company here directly paying absolutely no attention to the reconciliation that's supposed to be going on over there and signing oil contracts before there's even an Iraqi federal law of how to share the oil. 2. Last week there was a story you can read on CNN about a GOP, the Grand Old Party, a GOP-based PR firm called Barbara Griffin and Rogers. Their main spokesperson is Philip Zelikow, former lead counselor to Condoleezza Rice, also the former director of the 9/11 Commission report. This company has signed a $300,000 contract with former Iraqi Prime Minister Ayed Allawi. Their goal? To do a public relations smear campaign of present Iraqi Prime Minister al-Maliki. This would also seem to smack of interference as far as political reconciliation goes. I think that's a nice way of saying this could be seen as supporting a potential coup in Iraq. Both of these actions go directly in the face of the idea of creating space and harmony for the Iraqi government to come to terms and agreement with each other. I'm talking about the Sunni, Shia, and Kurds. My number 3 story, going a little bit away from Iraq for a second, is to our good buddies in Pakistan. Recently, the Pakistani Supreme Court ruled that one of their former prime ministers could return to Pakistan. He had been held, the government of Musharraf had accounts up against him for trumped up charges for some fraud he had supposedly committed. Their Supreme Court ruled that he would be allowed to return. Musharraf decided to spit in the face of the Supreme Court and say, no, 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 no. And he sent this former Prime Minister of Pakistan packing, no pun intended, or he said, I will jail you. The American government has come out and given the thumbs up to Musharraf for this action. This dictatorial action that has caused a humongous ruckus among the population of Pakistan. Can you imagine our president just disregarding a Supreme Court decision? Anyway, that was my 3rd story. My 4th story are 2 polls that have recently come out. Very interesting polls. One was released by a group called Terror Free Tomorrow, very ironically. They're called Terror Free, no more terror. It is led by a bipartisan group, including Senator John McCain and Lee Hamilton, former congressman and one of the crafters of the 9/11 Commission. They did a bipartisan poll in Pakistan, random, and in this poll, 3 of the questions were, how do you view Osama bin Laden? How do you view President Musharraf? And how do you view George Bush? 46% of the Pakistani population that participated in this poll viewed Osama bin Laden favorably. 37% viewed President Musharraf favorably. And 9% viewed George Bush favorably. So in this 3-horse race, bin Laden came in first, Musharraf second, and Bush third. These, remember folks, this is our ally, Pakistan. Okay. The other poll that I thought was interesting was released. It was done in a partnership between ABC, the BBC, and Japan's NHK. 57% of the people in this poll, Iraqis, this is an Iraqi poll, 57% of Iraqis, nearly all of the Sunnis polled and half of the Shiites polled, thought it was acceptable to attack U.S. coalition forces. 57%. This was just released less than a week ago. And my last story, anyone who watched the hearings heard Ambassador Ryan Crocker talk yesterday. He is the ambassador to Iraq. And Senator Levin had an interesting question for him. He said, did you say in an article by Time Magazine just a little over a week ago that if the Maliki government fell, that would be a good thing? Well, Crocker got tongue-tied and did not deny that he said this. Once again, folks, this would seem to me to be going against political reconciliation in Iraq. Are we supporting Maliki? Doesn't appear so. I urge all of you to read these stories. Also, watch the hearings. I think General Petraeus is a good commander. Unfortunately, I think that if you really want to answer the question for yourself, is the military surge working? You have to ask yourself, what is its purpose? Political reconciliation. Then you have to look at stories like these, along with all the great, beautiful stories we hear about Anbar Province and Fox News and CNN and all those other great stations we have for news media in the United States. So remember, folks, most important thing, think for yourself.